Hello and welcome to my weekly energy tune-in. I wanted to share a little bit something about a subject that has been coming up a lot lately online. I've seen other people talk about it, and I really wanted to address it because I think it's probably very important because everybody's talking about it. Also because I have found myself in this situation many, many times. And I found that there's reasons why we find ourselves in this situation. So the situation I'm talking about is being or feeling stuck. So there's different reasons why we can feel stuck. Me personally, a couple of years ago, I felt stuck as in I was not able to, like, I felt kind of like I was blocked, like something was blocking me or I didn't know something. And I realized at the time that there's something that I don't know or something I don't see or I don't realize. That was before trauma memories started returning. So what came to me actually just yesterday, is the reason why we have these feelings where we feel like we're feeling blocked or stuck even, or we feel like we don't see something or we can't do what other people can do. Sometimes we lack focus, we're unable to organize things, we can't get our shit together. The reason is because of how our mind works. And our mind has three components. This is what I was receiving yesterday. It's actually an insight. And the way that you can imagine this, if you want to imagine this for a second, is that the mind or even the whole universe is like a circle. So just imagine a circle, and then imagine another circle inside, and then another little circle inside. So these are three levels to the mind. There's the conscious mind, which is the small circle in the middle. Then there's the subconscious mind, which is the bigger circle around it. And then there's the superconscious mind, which is a big circle around the other two. So, and when we feel blocked, it is because the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, or the conscious and the sub and superconscious mind, are not communicating with each other. So what this means is you've created a wall between your conscious mind and your sub and or superconscious mind. So you built up a wall for a reason, right? We build up a wall usually because we experience some sort of level of trauma. So when we experience a certain level of trauma and we build up this wall, we disconnect ourselves from our power, which is the superconscious and the subconscious mind. And the reason why they are so powerful and your conscious mind is not very powerful, it has different power, is because the conscious mind can only process 40 bits of information per second. The subconscious mind can process 11 million pieces or bits of information per second. And the superconscious, they have never even measured it, not that I know. If they have, let me know, I'm really curious. But it can process an infinite amount of information as far as I know. So just imagine if you're putting a wall up between your conscious mind and your sub and superconscious mind, you no longer have freely access to all of that information. So this means that, for example, if you have suppressed trauma memories, you're no longer able to access those memories or that trauma or that information, right? And so this means that you're not able to use that information to help yourself or to get your point across or to write about something that you have experienced in your life, right? So it's almost like you have blocked yourself from your own power and from your own abilities, from your own self, because the superconscious mind, they are a part of you. Right. And so you're putting this wall up, and this means now you have this experience of you being two separate people. You're no longer a whole person. You're now just a fragment of a whole person because you no longer access that information the way that you could potentially access that information. And so why am I saying this is because a couple of years ago when I had memories come back, It was because when I went through really deeply emotionally very painful experience, it sort of knocked that wall down. Because when I had this experience, I went through like a breakup and my whole reality started changing. I was asking for help. I was actually sending out help requests into the universe, right? And so that information started coming back, because as soon as you ask for help, you're lowering that wall that you've built up, because the only way to get your help or your information and guidance that you need is if you lower that wall of fear, right? Because the fear wall has protected you from having to re-experience whatever trauma you experienced, or it's sort of blocking you from having to address certain things that you don't want to address, or that maybe you didn't feel capable of addressing at the time. And so when that wall goes down or starts to dissipate, you suddenly become very, very aware of who you are and what you've been through in your life, right? And it's interesting to me how that always takes some kind of an emotional shock or a trauma, yet another trauma, to break down that wall that you've built around yourself to protect yourself, so that you have now free access to that information that you have pushed away. Or even not just information, but just imagine, a lot of people walk through life with feeling disconnected from God, disconnected from the universe, disconnected from an important, significant part of themselves. And so they feel like they're all alone here. And then they also get depression because of that, depression and anxiety, because you no longer feel like you're guided every step of the way through your life. You no longer feel the support of the universe, right? Because you put up the block, you put up this wall, this barrier. So you no longer have access to all of this that is available to you. And so when that wall started coming down, suddenly I began to have these experiences again. I had them before, I just wasn't aware of it as much as I was after. So as this wall was coming down, I became more and more aware of the things around me. I started to be able to tune in and see things that I wasn't aware of before. For example, I would really tune into messages that would come at me through music, for example, or my mind would suddenly focus on something in the room or in a book that sort of just sprang up and gave me a message from the universe, right? And so if you are completely blocked, or if you put a wall up around you, it is very unlikely for you to notice that the universe is always speaking to you. It's always there talking to you at all times. It's just that either your wall is up or it's down. When it's down, you receive the messages and you're aware of it, and you know how to move through your life. And you also realize that, you can't really do anything wrong, because your path is your path. It is what it is, and it only feels like you're not on the right path if you have blocked yourself, or if you put that wall up. And this is an interesting thing too, because at the time, many years ago, I thought somebody else must have blocked me or done something to me, because I couldn't remember certain things, or felt like not 100% there, felt like parts of me was missing, right? But in fact, I have done this to myself. I've done this to myself subconsciously to protect myself. And if I've done it, you've done it. We all do it. It's automatic. We automatically do this. It's an automatic reaction. And the same with self-sabotage. We always self-sabotage. Everybody self-sabotages. It's just to keep ourselves safe. That's the whole point of it. And also because we as humans always seek comfort. So when we seek comfort over challenges or difficulties, we are still in this bubble. We are still protecting ourselves. We're not daring to venture out and experience new and different things, right? This is why it's important to remember to be a little bit more curious about things and not just walk around through life with your blinders on all the time, right? And learn to drop that wall a little bit, because when we have a wall up, we're also blocking our heart energy. When we block our heart energy, it's even more difficult for us to connect with other people around us, with you, with me, right? Because the heart energy is the transmitter that will help us feel connected to the people around us, and let us feel connected even to our own soul, our own calling, our own inner world. And so it's very, very important to remember that. So this is a message that I wanted to share with you. I'm just going to see what else I have written down here from last week. So yeah, interesting. What came up for me was because I work sometimes night shifts. And of course, when you're very, very tired all the time and you have a hard time sleeping, when it's very, very busy at your job or your business, sometimes some of us will go and use melatonin. Okay, melatonin is normally naturally produced in our pineal gland, in our intestines, and probably some other places. And it helps our wake and sleep cycles. It helps us to fall asleep. It also helps us with dreaming. And so we sometimes take that over-the-counter medication, which is melatonin, usually synthesized, so it's artificial. Some of the melatonin is used from actual pineal glands from animals. And so the message I received about this, because I was curious about this for a little while, because I noticed every single time when I did take a little bit of melatonin, and I don't take a lot, just a tiny bit, I had these absolutely crazy dreams. And I was wondering, like, what does this mean? What's going on here? And what I received was because it's synthetic, or also when it's from animals, because it's not your own melatonin, your dreams are actually infiltrated by this other energy of melatonin. And so that is why it changes your experience in your dreams. And sometimes it feels like it's very vivid, right? But sometimes you'll notice how something's just really weird about it, or there's like strange things happening inside the dream that you feel like this doesn't really make sense, or it's not really right, or it's just, I found, like, if I want to be more specific, in one dream, it was super, super clear. It was this beautiful ocean. I jumped off a boat in this absolutely clear water. And then I sort of walked around, and there was these people, and I can't even really call them people, because one guy had like a leg half cut off, and another guy, like, it just looked really weird. Their whole body parts and limbs, they just didn't look right. And I felt like something was weird. Like, it's almost like something infiltrated my dream. And sure enough, this is the message I got later, is because that melatonin energetically is not of my energy. It's not my melatonin. And this is why it creates this distortion in your dreams. So I just thought to share this with you, because I think this is very interesting. And since I was with melatonin, I also asked about nicotine, actually. And many, many years ago, I used to smoke, and I got this intense calling not to smoke anymore. I was told by my guidance to stop smoking and stop drinking and even stop coffee. And at the time, I didn't clearly know why I should do all of these things, what the purpose was. And even though sometimes I would receive some information, it's like my mind almost doesn't really want to believe it, or it's kind of rejecting it. I don't know if you've ever had this experience. You receive this higher guidance, but you're like, man, no, I don't want to do it, right? But anyway, the reason for that is actually because nicotine decreases your IQ, and it influences your memory function, causes anxiety and depression. So smoking isn't just bad for the lungs, right? So, and at the time, because I was receiving back memories from my trauma, of course, I had to increase my IQ so I could figure out what the heck's going on in my life, right? So for you to be conscious and aware and understanding what's going on in your life, you have to reduce or take out any of these habits and things that you're doing that is somehow causing your IQ to decrease or your memories not to be there, right? Another thing that I wanted to mention, because this is another information I received at the time, was that I should be taking ginkgo biloba as a supplement or tea, and also not to drink coffee. So ginkgo biloba is actually from a very ancient tree from Japan, one of the trees that survived Hiroshima. It's one of the oldest trees on the planet. It is very medicinal, so people use it for medicine reasons. And even in Germany, you need to actually have a prescription to even purchase it. So, and what ginkgo does, what I found out, is that it actually helps to decrease anxiety, and it helps your brain to heal itself, which is incredible. So if you're a trauma survivors have brain damage, and that brain damage can't be healed with pharmaceuticals. The information I received from my higher guidance, that's the only way to heal from trauma, especially from childhood sexual abuse type of trauma, child sex trafficking type of trauma, other types of severe trauma that has influenced your brain and how it developed when you were a child, should not be in any way stressed any further. You need to actually remove yourself from the stressful situations that you're in. And you also have to reduce any kind of actions or habits, or get rid of any habits that could somehow stress your brain any further. And I think this is why I was called to not smoke, to not drink, and also even reduce or take away coffee altogether. Because coffee, actually, 1 cup of coffee can decrease the blood flow to your brain by 40 to 50%, which is a lot. So just imagine you want to heal from trauma and you're reducing blood flow to the brain every single day. I mean, of course you can't heal. And of course it's going to take much longer for you to figure out what happened in your life, or to be able to remember things that you had forgotten about or you repressed, right? And so this is why it's so important that we take care of ourselves. And I just wanted to share this with you because I feel that it is very significant. It's one of the most significant things that I have learned in my life the last maybe 10 years or so. So you're welcome. Just wanted to see what else here is. A lot of people have been talking about the end times, that we are in the end times. So I understand that people have different ideas about the end times. How I see the end times is not that the earth is disappearing or we're dying or we're going to get hit by a comet or something like that, and the whole planet will be destroyed or something like that. These are all probabilities. But the end times, in fact, actually, we're talking about the end of one era of humanity, because we were going through different levels of growth and development as species on this planet. And it's actually not just humanity, it's all life on the planet. It's not just us who is changing and developing into a different level. If you've ever noticed how even wild animals have become much more, I would say, intelligent and much more also seemingly more compassionate in general, like they're able to more connect. Even us, we're able to connect with them more. And I think it may be, a two-way street, because I believe that generally our reptilian brain is losing its power. It is giving way to our more cognitive thinking, empathetic kind of a brain. The reptilian brain is the brain that will put us into fight-flight mode. And A lot of animals experience that because the reptilian brain is quite large compared to the rest of their brains. Our brain, our reptilian brain, has shrunk over the eons in the past, and so we become more aware, more conscious beings overall. It's very interesting because what just popped in my mind is an experience I had when I was a kid, and I was a little kid, and I was crawling to my living room, and my parents were sitting there, and I peeked around the corner, and I saw them both sitting there, and their heads looked like reptilian heads, like a reptilian. And it was really scary for me, and I ran back to my bedroom. I was all scared. Of course, what I saw wasn't a physical change of a head into a reptilian. It was my third eye, or my inner vision, has picked up on the energy, on the brain wave that they were functioning under, which was the reptilian brain, right? So reptilian brain is responsible for fight, flight, reactions, emotional reactions, and stuff like that. People who are not very grounded or conscious or aware beings will function from the reptilian brain. And just if you have ever experienced looking at somebody and you see their eyes change into what looks like reptilian eyes, this is exactly what's going on. It's not that they are physically reptilians, which is a big, huge misconception that many so-called starseeds have. I mean, there are starseeds. Most people on this planet are starseeds, actually. Some are awake, some are not. But a lot of people don't understand that what it actually means to be reptilian, or what reptilian actually really means. It means that you're functioning under the premises of a reptilian brain, mainly more so than the rest of your brain. And it is a leftover from where we came from, because millions of years we had lots and lots of very advanced, developed reptilians here on the planet. We all know that. We found the skeletons, right? We all know that they existed. And so we still have that part in us as well. It's a part of our heritage, a part of our blood. And so we are in the process of really mastering that part of ourselves, so that we can become more conscious, aware, and empathetic beings on this planet, and make better choices for ourselves and everybody around us. So that is the point of, mastering the reptilian brain, so to speak. We'll see what else is here. So I don't know. I've kind of mentioned this in the past. I think last time I did a little bit of a live, but I'm still trying to figure out how this YouTube channel works. But anyway, I was talking about the intense energy that we have been experiencing the past 3 weeks or so. It kind of started with this solar flare that we had that was apparently really big. And then we also had this super moon. And the combination of that seemed to really bring out the aggression, or the male energy in everybody, females and males. But I found that a lot of people would become very reactive, controlling, judgmental, and it's been very, very intense for myself and people around me. And I really tried my best to stay in the neutral place. But at some point you have to speak your truth, and you have to speak your piece and say what you actually think. Because if you don't, if you're just keeping things quiet, and you're too scared to share how we feel and what you think about something, your life will, and then we come back to being stuck, your life will feel stuck. You will feel stuck because you're not taking right action, right? You're not speaking up, you're not telling how you're thinking. And so everything will stay the same, because you're not making any choices. You're not making any active choices in your life by speaking up, or sharing how you're thinking, or telling somebody off when you must tell them off, right? And so when you're not doing that, then you're going to feel very stuck in your life, and you're not moving anywhere. Nothing's changing. Everything's staying the same, and you're staying miserable because, the thing is, misery is like, it's almost like when you're too much in misery for too long, you become comfortable with it, because you sort of start to make friends with your misery. And it's really hard to change that once you're too comfortable and too familiar with that feeling or that circumstance that isn't really truly making you happy, and it's not really beneficial for you. So you have to speak up. You have to say, and even if it means that people are going to leave you or people are going to think badly about you, it's not about making people like you. It's about you figuring out how you want to live your life and what you want to entertain in your life and what you cannot and should not entertain, and exactly what it is that you want out of life, what you want to create, how you want to live your life, right? And if something always gets in the way, that maybe it's got to go. Maybe it's time to just speak your truth and say it how it is, and it will find its merry way, and you will find your merry way, right? And that will bring you out of your stuckness. So I just think that's important. What else? I wanted to share a little bit about past lives. So how did this come to be again? So I don't know why we were talking about past lives. Oh yeah. And so I had an Akashic reading with somebody some time ago. And this whole thing popped up again because I know many of us believe that we only have one life, which is an illusion. Totally illusion, trust me, I know. But a lot of people think also, and yeah, exactly, because I was watching some videos on YouTube about people, actually children who remembered their past lives and would tell their parents about it. And then some of those parents would actually take the initiative and go and look for those families that their child once were living in, had like those different moms and dads and grandparents. And some of them were actually able to find these family members, which was so fantastic to watch. Really, really interesting. So one of the things I realized about past life is that, you know, a past life, sometimes people think that past lives are supposed to stay in the past. It's like people who say the past should stay in the past and you shouldn't address it. I don't believe that. I think that's wrong. And I think that a lot of people who don't want to deal with the past and run away from it, they actually stay stuck for much longer in their lives. Right? You stay stuck much longer because you're not really properly dealing with your past. You're not fully integrating the past in your present, because the past is not separate from your present. It is always with you. It's just like your purpose is always present. It's always with you. It's not something you have to go and find. It is something you have to remember, because it's not something that's ever been separate from you. And it's the same with the past, because the past is inside of you, just like your inner child is always inside of you. You cannot separate from it. You cannot run from it, you know? And the idea of getting stuck in the past, the only way that maybe you can be stuck in the past, if you keep thinking that whatever happened in the past is going to happen to you in the future, or you're projecting everything from the past onto the present and other people. Because things change and people change. It's not always the same, right? However, the past has to be integrated. It has to be acknowledged. It has to be known, because if you do not do that, if you run from it, you're never whole. You're constantly going to be all over the place. You can never focus anything. You can never get anything done. You can never actually really remember the reason why you're here, remember your purpose, because your purpose is in your past. There is your purpose. You likely grew up with that. It is a part of who you are and a part of who you're becoming. And the sooner that you welcome that and accept that challenge, then the sooner you will know who you are. Right? Because the past is a part of who you are. It will never not be. And if you're scared of it because you didn't like something about your past, learn to make friends with it. Learn to become comfortable with it. Learn to speak about it, because it's only this evil, evil monster if you are not daring to look it in the eyes. You're running from it. The monster will run after you. It's just like when you run from a bear. It will run after you and chase you up the tree until you finally face it, turn around, face it, and say, you know what? I welcome you. I don't have to be afraid of you. You're a part of me. You're a part of my story. You're part of who I am or who I have become right now. And even if it's shitty, even if I wasn't proud of myself, even if I hated what I did, it is still a part of who you are. And the very thing that you're running from is the very thing that you may be able to help other people with. So what are you running from? You're running from your own destiny. You're running from your own history. You're running from yourself when you're running from it or thinking that you should never dig up the past. You should, darn right, you should dig up the past. The best things I've ever written on the Elephant Journal or in any books I wrote in was stuff from my past. They're stories that I now get to share with you. These are stories you get to share with other people. That may surely be your purpose, right? So don't run from it. Don't run from your past. The same with past lives. Past lives sometimes have to be remembered or want to be remembered because sometimes something in your past life, there's something there that you haven't finished. There may be something there that you want to pick up again and do in this life or continue in this life. You know, there are things, work that we have done in our lives, past lives, that we were not able to finish. And I know a lady I did an Akashic Records reading for. She's done work in past lives, very important work, and it was all destroyed. She couldn't even save it. And she felt like she needed to continue this work, or she needed to remember that work she was doing so she could continue it or even reframe it and change it. But it was so important. Her soul really wanted to readdress these things. And I feel even in my past lives, there have been things in my past life from about 4,000 or 5,000 years ago that I started, and I am now continuing this. I'm actually still working on these things. I had to remember it because, of course, I didn't remember it. I knew, it's almost like I always kind of knew about it inside, and knew sort of something about it, but I forgot a large part of it because it is natural for us to forget, right? Because it's so far-fetched. It was so long ago. And the only way that we can access the memory of these things is actually through meditative moments. So when you tune in with your inner space, with your sub and superconscious, and here it is why it's so important that we learn to lower that block or that wall so that we can access that information again, that we can actually come here and do the things that we really want to do, that our soul wants to accomplish in this lifetime, right? Because our human lives have an expiry date. It's not forever. We can have other lives, but are you going to remember in your next life what you wanted to do? That is the question. Are you? You know, because I couldn't remember a lot of things. And even if I remembered the things, it just didn't click fully, or I couldn't fully make sense of it until later on in my life. The puzzle pieces started to click together. And it was the same with my memories from my childhood trauma. I didn't remember it until I was 36 years old, you know, and what if something would have happened to me? I would have never been able to access the memory of who I actually am and what I've been through, right? And what stories I could share with people, with readers, or even what I could help people with, what I could coach people with, you know? And so it is important that we're able to remember. And this is why I always like to say that life is about remembering who we are. It's about awakening and remembering who we are. That is absolutely significant for so many of us. And I'm not saying that all of you are going to be able to do this or are able to accomplish it in this lifetime. But I think if you're still watching this video, then you're probably one of us. You've experienced this. You know what I'm talking about, right? And when you're opening up to this part of yourself that is so infinite, all of these beautiful, beautiful insights, all of this information, all of this magic returns. And what you can do with it is just literally endless. You can do anything with it. You can write, you can talk, you can go on travels, you can revisit places that maybe you've visited in your past lives, or you can maybe help other people who've gone through the same trauma that you have gone through, right? This is one of the points of why it's important we remember our trauma and remember what we've gone through, because that is the only way that we're going to be able to help other people who have gone through these things. That is the point of it. So, I hope that helps. And I don't want to make this video too long. It is already quite long. And hopefully I'll be able to share something next week and I hear from you at some point. And I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think. And I'll see you next week. Have a good week.